God. Take another example. Say a man is survived by his childless wife, his mother, and his sisters. The wife receives 1/4 of the inheritance. In what ye leave, their share is 1/4 if ye leave no child. The mother receives 1/3. For parents, a 1/6 share of the inheritance to each, if the deceased left children. If no children, and the parents are the heirs, the mother has 1/3, and the sisters are to get 2/3. If there are 2 sisters, they shall have 2/3 of the inheritance between them. Again, the total of the shares exceeds 1, this time by 3/12, 25%. This is negligible. In these examples, the shares apportioned to the heirs exceed the total of the patrimony. In both cases, the total of the inheritance sums to exactly 1 before taking into account the wife's share. What should happen if a man has 4 wives? Do all his wives each receive 1/4 of the inheritance? That wouldn't be possible, as it would leave nothing for his sisters and parents. Does this mean the wives share the quarter equally, with each wife receiving 1/16 of the inheritance? This law is not only mathematically wrong, it is also confusing and unjust. Let's say a man dies, leaving behind his parents, 2 sisters, and 4 wives. For now, let's ignore the mathematical error. The 2 sisters will each receive 1/3 of the inheritance, but each wife will receive 1/16. Does that seem like a fair distribution? What if the deceased is a woman? Husband receives half. In what your wives leave, your share is 1/2 if they leave no child. Brother receives everything. If such a deceased was a woman who left no child, her brother takes her inheritance. If the brother gets everything, how the husband can get half? Again, this division is mathematically wrong, and it's also unjust. What about her parents and sisters? Don't they inherit anything? This verse does not specify that the brother gets everything only when there are no other heirs. It just says when there are no children, he gets everything. In the same verse, it says that if a man dies leaving behind a sister, she gets half. What will happen to the other half? Here is another absurd case. A woman leaves behind a husband, a sister, and a mother. The husband gets 1/2. In what your wives leave, your share is 1/2, if they leave no child. The sister gets 1/2. Leaving a sister but no child, she shall have half the inheritance. The mother gets 1/3. If no children, the mother has 1/3. The funds are 1/3 short. It's clear that in matters of inheritance, the Quran is very obtuse. These errors are elemental. It's hard to believe God does not know how to add simple fractions. These errors are made by a very illiterate man. The law of inheritance is so obtuse that the Shiites and the Sunnis practice it differently. For example, if a man leaves a wife and the 2 parents, the Shiites will give the wife 1/4 of the entire inheritance first, and then distribute the remainder among other heirs. The Shiites have devised a hierarchy in inheritance. The heirs in the higher hierarchy receive their shares first, and whatever is left is divided among the hired in the lower hierarchy. According to this provision, the shares received by the heirs are not the same as dictated in the Quran. The Sunnis give the wife 1/4, the mother 1/3, and the father is counted as the nearest male relative and gets the rest, i.e. 5/12. To address these issues, Islamic jurists developed a complex science known as al-fara'id, or the law of inheritance, which includes the rules of all and rod to resolve calculation problems. The law of all or increase deals with cases when the inheritor's shares exceed or overshoot the sum of the total inheritance. In such cases, the shares are adjusted to accommodate everyone. This is how it works. 3/24 is changed to 3/27. 16/24 is changed to 16/27. 4/24 is changed to 4/27. 4/24 is changed to 4/27. 27/24 is changed to 27/27. For the second case, 3/12 is changed to 3/15. 4/12 is changed to 4/15. 8/12 is changed to 8/15. 15/12 is changed to 15/15. The problem is solved thanks to human ingenuity, but not without violating the Quran. Each party has to waive part of his or her share. This is a clear case in which the words of Allah needed human intervention in order to become applicable. Muslim jurists were forced to twist the law of the Quran in order to make it work. Cases where the shares of the inheritors don't sum to a whole 100%, which leaves a surplus. Take, for example, a man who dies and leaves his wife and his mother. Wife gets 1/4. The mother received 1/3. Total is 7/12. Who will receive the balance 5/12 of the inheritance? The following are other cases that leave a surplus of inheritance. Only a wife, fund distributed 1/4, surplus 3/4. Only a mother, fund distributed 1/3, surplus 2/3. Only a daughter, fund distributed 1/2, surplus 1/2. 2 daughters, fund distributed 2/3, surplus 1/3. Only a sister, fund distributed 1/2, surplus 1/2. A mother and a sister, fund distributed 1/3, plus 1/2 equals 5/6, surplus 1/6. A wife and a mother, fund distributed 1/4 plus 1/3 equals 5/12, surplus 7/12. A sister and a wife, fund distributed 1/2 plus 1/4 equals 3/4, surplus 1/4. In all these cases and many other combinations, there is a surplus. What will happen to this surplus? Who will inherit it? To deal with this problem, the law of Rad has been devised. Rad means to return to. This law regulates the unclaimed shares, which have no corresponding people to receive them. Of course, if the Quran was clear with no errors, there would be no need for all these sciences and amendments. The law of Rad is based on the following hadith.
Give the fara'id, which is the shares of the inheritance that are prescribed in the Quran, to those who are entitled to receive it. Then, whatever remains, should be given to the closest male relative of the deceased.
According to this law, a man who dies and is survived by only his daughter with no other close male relative except a second cousin, his daughter will receive half of his inheritance, and the other half will go to the man's second cousin. This seems quite unfair to the daughter, but it would be especially unfair if the man had a needy aunt or a female first cousin who would receive nothing because they are of the wrong gender. Now, suppose a man has no other heir except his wife and a distant male relative. The wife will receive 1/4, and the distant male relative gets the rest. He gets 3 times the inheritance than the wife. The wife who has sacrificed her need to save that money now will get 1/4 of what should be all hers. Is this justice? What if the deceased has no male relative? What will happen to the rest of his inheritance? What will happen if the deceased is the wife with no relatives? The husband will receive half of her inheritance. Who will get the other half? The obtuseness of the law of inheritance is further emphasized in the following example. Consider the case of a man with only 1 daughter and 10 sons. According to the Quran, the daughter receives half, while all the sons must share among themselves the other half. So each will receive 1/20 of the inheritance. But this contradicts the other ruling that says a male is to receive twice the share of the female. Something must give in because the two laws don't mix. Of course, for 1400 years, Muslims have practiced Islam, and somehow they managed to make these confusing laws work. How they did it? They reinterpreted, compromised, and adjusted the laws to make them work. The Sunnis put all the inheritance in a pool and give to each male child twice the share of their female siblings. For instance, the inheritance is $100. Each son will get $9.50, while the daughter only gets $4.75. This solution, though satisfies one of the rulings, it contradicts the other. Despite all these inconsistencies and errors, the real problem with these laws is not that they do not make sense. The problem lies in the inherent injustice they embody. A fair-minded person cannot help but question why daughters should receive half of what the sons receive, why sisters should receive less than brothers, and why a widower is entitled to double the share of a widow. Think of a man with 4 wives. All the wives have to share 1/4 of his wealth if they have no children, and 1/8 if they have. In the first case, each wife will receive 1/16 of the inheritance, and in the second case, 1/32. On the other hand, a man who loses all his 4 wives will inherit half of every wife's wealth. Isn't this the formula to enrich the men and impoverish the women? It is easier to forget the mathematical errors of the Quran than forgive its injustice. Quran, Surah An-Nisa, verse 176 claims that Allah makes this clear to you so you do not go astray, and Allah has perfect knowledge of all things. As we have seen, the Islamic laws of inheritance are far from clear. It is obvious that Allah is not only incapable of adding simple fractions, but is also very unfair and cruel to females. Or the Quran was dictated by an ignoramus.